All right, we're live. So, hello and welcome to another episode of Gigsy Creator Central. I'm your host, Arvind, and the person who's hiding behind the curtain is none other than CEO of Gigsy India, Vikram Parthan. Oh, and there he is. My God, what an appearance. Today, we're going to be talking about something that is the lifeblood of any creator everywhere, anywhere, right? And that is the concept of a community built around what we do. As creators, it's very, very easy to get lost in the daily routine of, going ahead, creating something, putting it out there, and then waiting with bated breath, hopefully, hoping for that, someone's going to come back and respond. But today's session, and something that's going to be quite interesting for many people, is all about how do you actually go about building such a community, right? So there are going to be two aspects of it. The first part is the strategic side of things, and the next part is the tactical, right? So there, you have to remember that there are two sides of this whole thing, and that's what Vikram and I, and hopefully everybody else who's watching, is going to be contributing to as well. All right, so let's get started. The first thing, right, when you are starting off as a creator, is a very important distinction that you do need to make. That does come with a caveat, but this is the thing that you want to do. You want to make sure that you know exactly what is it that you're offering. Are you offering entertainment, or are you offering education, or are you offering infotainment, right? So think of it as a spectrum. On one end, you have education. On the other end, you have entertainment. And when you blend these two, right? So depending upon how much you have of each component, you would have infotainment, right? It's important that you figure out where it is you lie on this spectrum, because this is something that's going to inform many, many, many decisions, including how does your brand look? What are you going to be creating as content? What are the products you're creating? Who is your audience? All of those things will extremely, will depend very, very heavily on the answer to this question. Another thing that will change is the kind of goals that you would have, right? So when someone's watching your content, right, it could be a video that you made or an article that you've written. Does it still make sense for them? Like if you've written like something very heavy duty and very serious, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just that the kind of audience that you're going to be requiring, right, the kind of audience you're going to be attracting is going to be very different than, let's say, if you made something like a 9gag or a Reddit post or something like that. Vikram, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, so I think, like you said, it's a pretty interesting balance, and all of these approaches have different goals and different types of marketing. So, for one, when I do coaching on a one-on-one basis today, it's mostly about um, it being very, very information and education centric, right? I mean, there is no component of entertainment involved because the topic itself is, pretty serious about becoming happy for pretty serious. And then I say becoming happy and finding happiness forever. So, yeah, but
No pressure.
no pressure at all. So there are going to be aspects where you can bring in some humor element and some entertainment element in, but when the topic is heavily loaded in the favor of finding your true north, finding your happiness, and finding your true calling, and all of those things together, becomes a bit of a serious topic and becomes very more anecdotal, becomes very more very much education centric and example centric, right? So
Interesting.
yeah, so
I want to bring out one other creator in this space, right? Mark Manson. He's written The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Blank, right? And it's a very contentious book, but it's actually a very nice book. Once you do go ahead and finish reading it, you'll realize that he is talking about some pretty heavy duty stuff, right? He talks about stoicism, the meaning of existence, what is it that you attach importance to, and all of that. But he has a very unique and differentiated angle, right? And he does use a lot of profanity. He does use a very, very strong, perhaps even polarizing perspective, something that we're going to unpack a little bit later. And I think that actually works in his favor, in the sense that he is able to use that to stand out, right, in a sea of sameness. So I think that also helps. And it's interesting that you mentioned content as well earlier, when you're talking about, because marketing is also something that's going to be influenced by that, right? The kind of people you're attracting is going to be determined by the kind of content you put out and the kind of message that you're using, the kind of words that you're using. So all these approaches, when you're looking to pick one, you obviously have to put in a lot of thought onto all of that. So that's number one. right? So before you start out building your community, what you got to do is decide whether you want to focus on entertainment or education, or is it going to be a blend of the two, and to what degree, right? The next bit that's going to come up is personality, right? And that's kind of where Mark Manson kind of shines, in the sense that he has a very unique personality. If you look at Gary Vaynerchuk, he has a very distinct personality. If you look at Ricky Gervais, a stand-up comedian, he definitely has a very, very strong personality. Elon Musk, right? Any of these famous people who seem to have a following or a community around what they do have something that's very out there, something that's very polarizing, and something that they believe is the right thing, right? So they have the 100% conviction, and they've built out these cults of personality, right, essentially around themselves. So that's the first thing I wanted to share about personality itself, right? You have to base it on yourself. And here's the other bit. Apart from basing it on yourself, you have to make it appealing to the target market. What I mean by that is, as a human being, right, we have multiple facets, multiple angles, multiple sides to our own personality. And we might be as a certain person in private, but when we go into public, right, when we are trying as a creator trying to engage with our audience, just being ourselves is enough, as long as we highlight, or like bump up, like crank it up to 11 certain aspects of our personality, right? We're not changing who we are, we're just highlighting certain aspects, right? So we don't want to completely change who we are, and we don't want to do that, but what we do want to do is take a certain aspect and then bump it up. As a result, what happens is we tend to lead with a sense of authenticity. And I believe that when we are true to ourselves, we're not going to burn out. We're not going to tire out. We're not going to just fade away, because we're still going to be leaving an impact on what we want to do. So
Yeah.
Vikram,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, I think you were going to cue me in anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I think just in terms of being authentic, it's very, very important that you come across as you, and you're not trying to be somebody else, and you're not
Mm,
trying to imitate someone else or take cues from somebody else in your style of delivery. I think the important thing is about being able to connect and being able to make sure that people at the other side are able to perceive you in a way where you are approachable and you are someone who is very, very connectable, right? And some people end up portraying such a big aura, it becomes very difficult to even sort of catch up to them and see them as people who are ordinary but have led extraordinary lives, right?
mm,
It's important to have that level of authenticity, and to make sure that people who are talking to you and are part of your close-knit community are very, very engaged with the kind of person that you are, and not someone that you're trying to become.
mm-hmm. Even at Gigsy, right? I think we've seen a couple of interesting examples. And again, just like how like entertainment and education was a spectrum, I think we have. I'm not going to take any names, all right? But we do have another spectrum, right? We have people who are hardcore mainstream, like spot bang in the middle, right? They are exactly what the people expect, right? Like they are dependable. They are solid. I think that's the politest and the most accurate way of saying that. This is what the market expects, and this is exactly what they are. So that's in the middle. And we have some people who are on the far end of the spectrum, right? I'm happy to say I'm one of those denizens, where we are approaching the market with something which is completely out there, something that's very, very different. And sometimes what can happen is people might think of you as crazy, right? I'm not saying that I'm crazy, but I'm just saying that that's a spectrum that exists, right? So this is what people know, and this is like the sea of boringness, and this is like the other end, right? Like where it's like the sea of craziness, right? So what you want to do, again, just like between how you're between education and entertainment, you want to be somewhere in the middle, right? So you want to be like definitely less mainstream than the mainstream people, but you also want to be more mainstream than the extremists, right? So I think it's about finding that sweet spot, and this is again something that will pop up when you, as a creator, whoever's watching this video and this webinar, will discover when it comes to your passion to profit bootcamp. When you're there, when you're doing research in the market, you'll see that, hey, these are all the different things that people are doing, right? And that's actually something that's going to be very useful. Uh, I don't know much about music, but this is an example that I heard from one of my marketing friends, right? He's like, so this is the difference between, let's say, Carnatic music, Yo-Yo Honey Singh, and Bacha. Okay, so on one end you have like Carnatic music, right, which is like it's as dependable as well known as it possibly can be. And then you suddenly had this outsider who was someone like Yo-Yo Honey Singh, right, who was just very, very different than whatever was out there in the market. So he had a very quick rise to fame. And then Badshah came in, right? So Badshah was like, he was definitely more modern and more appealing and interesting than Carnatic music for a certain audience. And look who just joined. We had another musician. Great.
My God, what a photograph that is, Tony. What a-
Welcome, Tony. Welcome. And then we had this person. So, they again had the blend of both worlds. All right, so that was the second bit, which was to, if you want to build that cult of personality, definitely build out a personality that's based on yourself, and it's very appealing to your target market, and it's somewhere halfway between being mainstream and crazy, right? So after all of this, right? So once you've figured out that, hey, this is the personality you want to have, and you've decided whether it's entertainment or education or infotainment that you're going for, the next thing would be step number 2 as a part of the Passion to Profit Bootcamp, which is the daily dose, right? So what you want to do is you built this personality, you know what you want to be giving out, right? So you want to keep on practicing giving out. So every single day, right? You're going to keep on creating something. And at the heart of all of this is the value that you can deliver, right? So some of the things that we do recommend are asking your audience for questions and using these questions and using your research. You want to figure out what is it that they want. And then you just package all of this in this piece of content you're creating every day. And you want to kind of build up this repository of content. And when you're going on this journey, right, when you're starting from day 0 or day 1, and then you're just repeating this process again and again and again, you'll notice that your voice will develop. The way you talk about your topic will change. The way you're going ahead and improving and to the extent to which you're able to communicate what you want to say is going to be improving every single day. And I believe this is like the best way for you to inject and deliver doses of your personality in at the heart of everything that you do. Vikram, have you recently started on this journey of making content? Can you share your experience on this so far?
The message that you send out is very, very important. So it's good to have it rehearsed. And I'm talking real tactical stuff here right now because I'm pretty freewheeling, very, very freewheeling when it comes to putting out content. So if you do not have a template in mind, like a structure in mind, it then becomes very difficult and you have to do multiple retakes to get something out there properly. And it takes more and more time and effort. So it's good to have a skeletal structure that tells you that these are the points that you're going to be talking about, and this is the order in which you're going to go talking about all of these points. And ultimately, there is a very significant value that is being delivered at the end of it, right? And it's important to have a nice little template, a very good script, just like Pratibha is saying. So it's important to have a script that may not be verbatim, but bottom line is it gives you a path. It gives you a way to actually make your content happen effortlessly.
Mm-hmm. And I completely buy what you're saying, especially when it comes to video, right? It's quite a challenging task to deliver everything in one take, and then it goes off, and you either make it or you have to redo the whole thing again, right? So some things, this is like a slight detraction, but video is definitely a nice way to go about doing these things. But there are other formats as well, which might make your life a little bit easier. Personally, because of the equipment that I have and the face that I have, I prefer audio more than video, right? So what happens is it's for me when I'm talking on audio, right? So I can record something like a podcast episode. I can share it with my target audience, and that really helps. And another thing that I really like to do is making mind maps, right? I feel that for my audience and for myself, using mind maps to talk about stuff is a very, very powerful tool. And I think that makes a lot of sense, right? So that's kind of the stuff the approach that I have been taken up. Yes, somebody does get the joke. I do have the face for radio, so that's an established fact. Moving on. Just to reiterate the point, which is you don't have to restrict yourself just to video. There are other these things that you could use. You could look at audio. You could look at drawing mind maps. You can look at drawing diagrams and pictures. You can look at writing text. I send out daily emails. These are all different opportunities, different media that you can use, and you can explore. Some of you on the session right now, I think Pratibha, you are quite comfortable with art and drawing and photography. So maybe those are things that you could definitely double down on. So that's it. That being said, the next point is going to just flip all of this on its head. And the point is to leverage video. I have a confession to make. I like making video, right? But I hate editing it. I personally cannot stand going back, sitting through the whole thing again, and then just making sure that everything is up to snuff, right? I can't do that. So one of the things that but I still want to go ahead and leverage video, right? There's a reason for that. The reason is that honestly, people have very, very short attention spans, right? Vikram, I'm sure you must have seen stuff like this, right? People have short attention spans, and trying to grab them and hook them is quite difficult. So I found a very quick way to bypass all of this is using live video, like exactly like what we're doing here. Vikram, do you want to pitch in with a couple of stuff here?
Yeah, I've actually seen that my engagement when I do a live video with people is a lot better than when I put out a recorded video. And these days I'm experimenting with textual posts on Facebook and LinkedIn to see whether
What
there's enough
works?
engagement. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like some of these textual posts that I'm putting out are actually getting a decent level of engagement. So I would want to experiment with that a little before I start going live and checking out that side of the spectrum as well. What I also want to start doing is to look at email lists as well. And I'm going to set up a MailChimp email list. And
Yeah.
that
MailChimp is free, so that's pretty cool. The reason why I'm highly recommending video is especially live video, right? Live video comes with like several benefits. One is whoever's watching, you can interact with them, right? So that's again going to be tying into the next point. But here you can actually involve your fans, your audience, as a part of the creation process. So that's number one. Number two, once it's live and it's gone live, you don't have to edit it. Okay, that's my personal pet peeve. But
yeah, it's a big deal.
it is a big deal, isn't it? Like especially when you're just sitting with a MacBook Air, right? Editing and then rendering the whole thing is going to be a massive, massive effort. So I really don't want to invest in that. The other thing is that there are tools nowadays. For example, Zoom that we are using right now. If I can talk on Zoom, and I can just essentially, like right now, that's what we're doing. We're recording this video. We're going to be making it available as a part of the resources section. The cool thing is that, well, we're doing this live, right? So there's no prep, there's no editing and all that's required. That's gone live, but it's going to live on for posterity as a part of the video itself. There are other video sources as well, that other tools that you could use. I personally would highly recommend this app called StreamYard, that I'm just going to very quickly type that out in the chat. StreamYard.com. It's a really cool thing. What it allows you to do is it's essentially like an online studio that you can use. So you open it up on your browser, you go to StreamYard.com, you register, and then you can essentially just like hook up your YouTube and your Facebook, and you can start streaming. Now, of course, you can stream to only one place at a time as a part of the free plan. But if you take the premium version, right, you can stream simultaneously to Facebook and to YouTube, and you can also do like a recording, right? You can add your own fancy logo and stuff like that, and then you can go ahead and you can deliver content like that. So what's happening is now simultaneously, right, you are streaming onto Facebook, you're streaming onto YouTube, and apart from that, you're able to record a video that's going to be living on forever as a part of whatever you want to do. This is a very, very cool and easy way, and a pretty cheap way. I think what, 15 USD is it's about 1150 bucks Indian rupees, right? 1150 as of today. And that's a small investment to make so that you can go ahead and create content that's going to be broadcast live as well as available for the future. And other options include, running webinars on Zoom. That's always there. You can always use these things, especially when you involve people, right, as a part of this process, to make sure that the kind of attention spans that we have, right, we can bypass them and we can hook people as a part of this experience. Okay, so that I think we've essentially hit the halfway mark. Oh, sorry, we've gone slightly beyond, but so far for the people who are there in the audience, do you have any questions? If so, just go ahead, unmute yourself and ask us. Otherwise, we're going to be moving on to the last 3 points that we have to share for today. Okay, Pratibha has given me a thumbs up. Tony, I know you did come a little bit late, so if you have any questions, do let us know. Oh, okay, so he's saying thumbs up from me too. Great. All right, so moving on. Creation, right? Pablo Picasso, that's one of my favorite quotes of all time. Every act of creation is an act of destruction as well. That's what he said, and that kind of makes sense. And a lot of people, like, look, as creators, right, we have fans, we have supporters, because these are people who like the work that we do. And that's one of the core philosophies behind what we do at Gigsy as well, right? We want to connect creators with their audiences. And for you as a creator, it's very important to realize that if you can take your audience and you can make them a part of your creation process itself, right, then the bond that exists between you and your audience, that's going to become much, much, much stronger. Right. So whatever you can do, I highly recommend that you involve your audience to become a part of the creation process. Vikram, could you add a few words to this as well, please?
Yeah, so I think a lot of things make sense in this entire spectrum of involving your audience, right? One of the things that typically happens if you're a musician and you would probably want to, and Tony, I know, is an awesome musician. So one of the things that, you might want to do is to get your audience to sort of tell you what sort of songs would they like to hear, right? What sort of music would they like to hear from you? What is it that they would want more of? Would they want more of, let's say, live videos? Would they want more of recorded videos? Would they want a particular genre of music to be played, etc., and all of that? Yeah, so Tony, you'll have to do that on Facebook and Instagram a lot more. Sorry to say, but yeah, that's something. Yeah, I mean, on Gigsy, you can't really get too many people to respond to you. So the best way to do that is to do this on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and then using that as leverage, you basically give out premium content through Gigsy, and you give out trailer-based content on other free-to-air social networks. So that way your audience feels involved in what you're doing, right? And they're like, hey, I'm getting what I want out of this person, and if I want more premium content, I should go to their Gigsy page and check them out there, right? So I think it's very important to get them involved in the process of creation. That way, you not only get them involved in your journey, you also make sure that they are feeling gratified and validated at the end of it, right? So it's important to keep them as part of your journey.
One of the simplest ways, right, and we started doing this at Gigsy as well, is to have a very simple Google form with one question, right? So essentially, when people you have this one link to a Google form where anybody can go ahead and ask you a question. So they have to enter their email address, and then what is a question or message that they have for you, right? And then you just circulate that form. You give it to your audience and say, hey, go ahead, fill this out, and I'll be more than happy to do that. Personally, I've seen that you can use this Google form to collect questions that you can answer. You can use this to collect ideas. You can use this to collect feedback. You can use this to get any sort of an input that you want from your audience. And as a result, what happens is you're going to be allowing them to be a part of the creation process, right? You let them share the spotlight, right? The magic that, guys, as creators, what we can do, we have something that's very special. That's something that others also want to be a part of. And that's where I was going with in the beginning, right? And by involving them, we're sharing a little bit of this magic with them, right? So when they get to influence what we create or what we do, suddenly it's a very different ballgame. They're like, dude, I made this. So they have a lot more sense of ownership. And that translates into good business sense as well, right? If you're thinking about it, when they are creating, when they're co-creating something with you, right? They feel a lot more involved. They give you a lot more support, and you can leverage that a whole lot more. The penultimate point that I have for you is consistency, right? Because building a community around this is not an overnight thing, right? Around whatever you do, it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to take years and years of effort and toil for it to become like super duper awesome. But you'll definitely start seeing success, but it's not going to happen overnight. You will need to put in the hours, maybe months, maybe years for it to actually build up that momentum, right? And during this time, you want to focus on two kinds of growth. The first is organic growth. The second is inorganic growth. What I mean by organic growth is, people find you, people discover you, people hear about you from their friends. Maybe you're there on a blog, that somebody else reads. Maybe you're there on a YouTube channel that somebody else is a part of, right? And these things can make a bit of a difference, right? They're like, oh yeah, I like what this person's saying, so I'm going to go check it out, right? Maybe there's a part of your email list. And speaking of email lists, I just cleaned up I run this other thing called Epic Career Labs, which is my thing on Gigsy, right? Where I'm giving career coaching. I had an email list of almost 850 to 900 people. And just before this webinar, what I was doing was I was looking at the behavior of all the people on that email list. So I've been sending them daily emails for like over 3-4 months right now. And what I've been doing is, and when I was looking through this, I was like, oh, okay. So when I looked at somebody who has opened every single email that I've ever sent out, I had about 111 people. 111 of almost 900, so 1 by 9. That's like what, about 11%, right? 11% of the people on my list are people who open every single email that I send out. That's number one. And then if I'm looking at people who have opened 5 in the last 10 or something along those lines, right? Suddenly that number went up to like about 400 or something. But then I also had like almost like 200 to 220 people who had never opened a single email from me. Right now, that's a bit of an eye opener, because even though I was thinking like, oh yeah, I have 900 people in my email list, only like 111 could be possibly called my super fans, right? They open every single email that goes out, whereas almost 220, 250 of them, they're like, dude, I don't even know how I got on the list. And that's okay, because this is how the community grows. And there's also a very strong indication of the inorganic growth, which is what I'm going to be talking about next. So this organic growth, as I've been building up this email list, right, what's been happening is I realized like the people who've been coming and staying are those who discovered me on other places. When they read about me somewhere, or they saw me in an interview, maybe they saw me here, there, whatever it is, right? When they have opted in, when they've chosen to listen to me, that's a strong connection. But I've also been running ads, right? I've been trying to sell some of the products that I have. And when people are coming in through that stickiness is a lot lower, right? So that's the other thing. When it comes to inorganic growth, it can work really, really well for you, provided you know how to go about and use it. In one of the earlier episodes, I believe we were talking about marketing ecosystems and the kind of traffic. Inorganic traffic is essentially you're paying money to get somebody from somewhere else to come and discover you, right? So we don't have much control over the quality of the traffic. Of course, we can set parameters to, let's say, Facebook or Google or wherever we are running our ads to say that, hey, you know what, this is the kind of stuff that, you should be looking at. But we have no control over the traffic. So inorganic growth over time, right? You have to keep on pumping money into that machine. So that kind of peters out after a while, unless you know how to make it work. All right. So that was the penultimate thing. And the last bit, all right? Before we go ahead to the last thing, I just want to give a quick recap. Okay. This entire session has been focused about how we can build a community around what we do. The first point was to decide whether we were looking at entertainment, education, or a blend between the two, also known as infotainment. Next, we spoke about building up a strong personality, something that's not mainstream and not absolutely crazy either. Then we spoke about using the daily dose to deliver small bursts of our personality in very, very valuable pieces of content. And then we spoke about how to leverage video, whether it is live or recorded. That seems to work, especially when you are looking to reach out to a much younger audience. That's definitely helping. And finally, we spoke about involving your fans as a part of the creation process, right? Where you ask them questions, you ask them to be a lot more involved in the kind of work that you're doing, help them have some sort of control over what you're doing. So that really connects with them. And finally, consistency. This is not an overnight thing. This is definitely going to require a bunch of sacrifices, I'm going to say, because we creators know that, right? So we will have to keep on creating stuff so that we eventually do end up building a strong audience. The last thing is a bit of is one of the reasons why we are here, right? Like at Gigsy, we thought about these things, right? We thought about how is it that we can deliver an experience that's going to make a lot of sense. And at the heart of all of this is the concept of subscriptions, right? both Tony and Pratibha, you've been on the platform for a while now, and for everybody else who's watching as well, subscriptions are a great way for you to set up monthly recurring revenue, right? So what happens in subscriptions, in case you don't know, I'm just going to give you a very quick primer. You can define different tiers, right? Different levels of subscription access. You always have a free one, and then on top of that, you can have different levels. And whenever you're creating content, right, you can designate it to be content that's going to go off in the free level, on the, let's say, the bronze, the silver, or the gold, or whatever the levels are, right? You can go ahead and designate the content to be a part of those levels. And then all you got to do is go ahead, create content, and then keep on sending it. One very easy way for you to figure out what is the kind of content you can create for each subscription level would be to create a content calendar. This is again something that's there as a part of the Passion to Profit Bootcamp, as well as an email that you should have already received as a part of the starter kit, right? That contains a template for a content calendar that you can use. And then it's just a matter of going forth and raising awareness about the fact that you have subscriptions and your fans can support. Vikram, do you want to talk about our events and webinars, and then maybe we can wrap it up from there? So please.
Yeah, before I move into the events and webinars bit, I would like to quickly get a check from both Pratibha and Tony about whether they've been receiving emails and whether they've been seeing and reading these emails. And, just, yes, I see a thumbs up from Pratibha, and yeah, and
Tony says yes as well.
Cool, nice. So it's nice to know that the email mechanism is working.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, it was the emails that brought me back to Gigsy. So I had shelved Gigsy for I think about 2 years because I thought it wasn't for me and it was too difficult and all of that. And then one day I saw an email that I was trying my luck on Patreon. And then I'd given up on Patreon because it's already so huge and there's so many people, or like I didn't know it would work. And then one of the emails was indicating this whole tier system to me. And then I said, wait, we have a Patreon version in India. And then that's how I called Vikram that day. And
awesome.
That brought me here. So
awesome.
Nice. How do I do the thumbs up as well?
You can, you're on video, so you can just do.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, just in terms of the kind of things that we are doing to help creators better, this session, which is a weekly thing, happens every Thursday from 7 to 8, where we talk about particular topics that are of interest to creators. We are covering a myriad of topics. We've covered like even Canva the last time to show people how to use Canva. I think at some point in time, we are even going to start bringing in guest creators so that they can start talking about how they have made money on the platform. And the second thing that we'll potentially also do is to, do more and more tool-based education, right? Where you guys understand how to edit certain videos or how to make it smarter in terms of better editing, better sound capability and all of that. We have a filmmaker amongst our midst today, so I don't even have to say this, but bottom line is we will be looking at going down that path as well. So this is a weekly event series that we'll continue doing. In addition to that, you have all of the emails that are coming out to you. That's going to be supplemented with a lot more email content. You would have received around 7 emails so far. So you will start getting more and more as more and more content is built out for the emails themselves. We are putting out a lot of content even on YouTube so that people understand how the platform works, and even the recordings of all of these webinars are being put out on YouTube. So you guys get a very good perspective of what is happening, and you don't really miss the webinar as well as a result. So yeah, we're doing a bunch of these things. I think on over a period of time, we've done a couple of interviews with Tony and Yadu as well. So those are all part of Gigsy Creator Central. So those sort of examples will continue happening. And I think we're just going from strength to strength, at least in terms of making sure that we have a complete community building approach, right? It's filled with a lot of different people from different walks of life. And the more different they are, the better it is.
Right. I just wanted to, before we sign off, I just wanted to highlight, I just remembered, we have 2 more aspects of the Gigsy platform itself, apart from free and paid subscriptions, right? One is the virtual events that people can set up, right? In fact, one of the things I'm going to be doing very, very soon is I think, you know, we could probably do this as a part of the next Thursday webinar as well, is all the gear you need to create home videos during quarantine. Of course, the
Oh,
name is
absolutely,
quite,
yeah.
yeah, it's quite a mouthful, but you know, I think I have all the stuff lying around at home. I can just show this. So there's all stuff that you can buy off Amazon. So that's there. So you know, conducting virtual events like virtual workshops, virtual meetings, that could be a really, really useful thing. And apart from that, also conducting like stuff like exclusive webinars, like what we are doing for our audience here at Gigsy, right? There's nothing stopping creators from doing the same thing for your own audience, right? Except please just don't do it from like Thursday 7 to 8, because we would love to have you here. But apart from that, the point is this, right? So whatever you're doing, like, it's not just doing what we do, it's also like it's not just doing what we say, but it's also doing what we do, right? I mean, we're dog fooding like this, like
Walk
crazy.
the talk, yeah.
Yeah, some politely. This will be recorded and senior people will be watching. But yeah, in essence, that's what we're saying. Like we're doing stuff that works, and you know, this is the playbook that we are using. This is exactly what we're doing step by step by step. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So great. That's pretty much it. Today was actually a pretty short session, because you know, this was just supposed to be like boom, 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 value packed, and you know, we're going to be sending out the notes and all that. And next week, I'm really happy to announce that, you know, we'll be doing a session on how to create great videos from home using your laptop or your phone, right? I'll actually showcase stuff like, hey, you know, I have this sort of a stand, or I have this sort of a microphone. I'll give you all the details. So that's definitely going to be helping people in terms of creating this content. So with that, I will now pause the recording. Sorry.